So they say there is nothing new under the sun. And so the only thing that truly exists is the past and the present. The future already exists because it's in the past. So this is why the key has always been to heal the past so you can become more aware of the present. So everything that you want is already in existence, but it's the ability to tap into the past, which is associated to the moon. This brings me on to say that the new moon is going to be located in the sign of Uttara Phalguni, which is the section which governs the sun. So the new moon is going to be in Leo in the true system of astrology. So with that being said, I'm going to tap into each of the zodiac signs, which is obviously the sun signs, and its effect throughout the next 2 months, as we're going to have a very interesting, transformative next couple months. But specifically September and October are going to be really actual. So what you want to do, if you want to know your true sun sign in the sidereal system, what you can do is click the link on the website and it will show you what your real sun sign is. So without further ado, let us get into this. Now, the sun represents the government. The new moon being in Leo, Leo represents the sun. So the government within you is governing your world. So the government in the world is governing you. But how are you governing yourself in reflection to that? So the key here is that the science behind this is it's bringing our attention to how we are governing ourselves. How are we tuned into the soul? Because the sun is the significator for the soul. So the real key here is really important. As the year is 2023, which adds up to 7. 2 plus 3 plus 2. We got the element of the number 7. Now, interestingly, when we go to America, and we're going to talk about America because the governments in America have a strong effect to the world. Now, the sun, first and foremost, has been affecting the world globally, whether you call it global warming or natural effects or the wake-up call. The key here is that, we had stuff in Morocco, storms around America. And when we look at that, we can see how the effects of the sun is already targeting this energy on a galactical point of view. Now, when we look at the sun from a governmental point of view, in America's birth chart, the moon is at 7 degrees in the American's birth chart. Now, what happens here is that the year is 2023, which adds up to 7. And at that 7th degree, Saturn will transit America's moon, meaning that it will create the symbolic echo of the number 7, which initiates the number 8, which is next year, which is a great year for Saturn. And Saturn, being the lord of the ring, connects to the government also. Saturn represents the karmic aspect of governing yourself and the dharma that you must produce, meaning the actions that you must actualize to become qualified in anything that you do. So in essence, what we are saying here is that there is a very important element for the government to understand, but financially this will have an effect on the economy. You already know perhaps that Halifax have updated their policy, which means that there is a possibility that at some point you may not be able to, perhaps, I'm not saying anything, but perhaps you may not be able to withdraw. Now, this is, one of the key effects. Now, this affects also our economy, and the economy of America has a huge effect on the world. It could affect the economy. I mean, these are all possibilities, but the stars never lie. So there is always some kind of spin to these effects. Now, the energy here is related to what we call a sati-sati, meaning that when Saturn conjuncts or sits on the moon's sign, well, where the moon is, it creates an effect which changes or creates a sense of anxiety or pressure. So the Saturn will pressurize the moon. And so this affects the economy in America because the 8th house in America is governed by the financial element. So in America's birth chart, the 8th house is the number 8, which is connected to Saturn, but the year is number 7. And so where the moon sign of America is going to be affecting the energy and the transition into the number 8, which is next year. So we can go deeper into the new moon and its connection to the sun, being that it has a strong effect on how you will govern yourself, because Leo represents how you govern yourself. And so in effect, what we're seeing is that the new moon will channel you to become more aware of yourself. So the mystical key of this month is awareness, because Mercury is also in the sign of Leo, which represents the awareness to shine, the awareness to be out there. And so when we look at Mercury, Mercury also governs storms. So storms in America, Morocco, and various aspects of the world where certain sudden or subtle events have been taking place. This is the association with the Sun and Mercury in the sign of Leo. Now, Mercury is retrograde, and it has been for a little while now. Venus has also returned forward since the 4th. It was retrograde previously, so some of the endings of relationships and perhaps certain issues with family members have been kind of highlighted. And on the 4th, when a planet is moved or caused to move forward, there is a standstill, and that standstill also represents the greater awareness of that planet. So this is where you have to be even more aware of what's taking place. So whatever took place on the 4th of September represents the activity that moves your relationship forward, or the energy that you want to, or the direction that you're choosing to move into from a relationship point of view with family members, through how you connect with them, but also relationships, actual relationships and friendships, and even things related to home, because Venus also represents the comfort of home and how you connect at home. So now the key is that Jupiter also went retrograde on the 4th, which literally, as Venus went forward, Jupiter went retrograde. And it's very significant from a numerological level and from a astrological level, because what we find is that the number 4 associates to the 4th day of the week, which is Thursday, which is Jupiter, and the etymology is jeudi, which is French for Thursday. So what we find is that the shape of Jupiter, the symbolic shape, is the number 4. So the number 4 connects to the 4th of September, which prepares us to go deeper into our mind and really understand the critical changes that one needs to understand or take to make correct actions with what you need. Now, ironically, where Jupiter is in the sign of Aries, which relates to the thinking, changes and challenges our spiritual values once again. And one of the key notes of this is that Jupiter sits in Bharani. Bharani represents the feminine quality which is associated to Venus. So, though this may sound a little bit confusing, but it will make sense. So, what it means is that it really changes your truth in connection to the relationships that you have. So the connections that you have and your values and what you need are being reevaluated as Jupiter is retrograde right now. So the great major planets are really showing us something. So Jupiter went retrograde on the 4th, which also wanted us to be more aware and present of the relationships that we have and how we are responding to critical events with people, how we connect with people, how we are relating to people, and how we are connecting in our relationships. So all of these are great tools of awareness that the planets want us to perceive and see. So we've had Venus, the 4th, with Jupiter, and we currently have Mercury retrograde into around the 15th to 16th of September, which is going to be really important. So before we get into the sun signs and how they are affecting us this cycle, because this new moon is so important because it activates the sun and it makes us aware of what the sun is about to do, because the sun represents the government, and we're going to see what the effects are going to be. Now, we already know about Birmingham, the council, and the amount of what the council have been doing. And so we need to look into that. We know that Rishi Sunak has decided to leave the UK. We need to look into that. We also need to identify how the effects of the economy is going to be, or certain papers which may be signed, or anything related to the world. It's going to be in major effect, especially with this whole thing with Biden and Trump, which has been going on for a little while now. Obviously, these guys are actors. They're not real, they're actors. So when we think of the sun being the governor, the sun also represents the element of play, which is a form of acting. Hence why the sun shines every day and acts and allows us to come out into the day and act out what we hide, which is the moon, the night, which is nuit or nuit in French, but in the Egyptian system we can see that Nut represents night, which is a goddess. So when we look at these elements, we see that we're shining out during the day, and we're literally going back within during the night. So when we kind of correlate them together, we're seeing how the sun is making us more aware of what we are and where we are. So it's at a critical degree where this new moon is, because this new moon highlights the final degrees of Leo. And so it brings the attention towards how we're feeling this and how we're governing our true potential. So the 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th are major dates for events to take place. So this is when the moon in America's chart will be conjunct Saturn, which is causing these changes from that point of view. And alongside with these, the personal planets are the most important planets, because they are the planets which affect us on the personal level, as opposed to but the effects are always felt from the the seven major planets. And I have to say this and stress this because there is a lot of confusion in the element of astrologers that speak about this. And so sometimes that needs to be sort of confirmed and brought to the awareness of people, so then they know that what they're really feeling is actually the personal planets. And this can be verified with many different aspects if you ever wanted to understand more about this with astrology. And perhaps, obviously, if you decided to ever get a reading, then it will make more sense as what is really taking place from these personal planets. So there's going to be two important planets which are going to be retrograde, one until November and one until next year. Jupiter and Saturn are going to be the major planets which are going to affect us, because Jupiter represents our beliefs. So spiritually, it's going to be great to reevaluate what direction you want to go, the actions that you want to proceed with, where you travel. There may be some changes to the places you want to travel to, or you may decide to change areas or parts of the world that you want to travel. So these are some of the effects which are going to be activated during the Jupiter retrograde. Now, in correlation to this, Saturn is also retrograde. So everything that has been happening for the last 2 months is also being affected to what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, the structure that you're trying to bring into yourself. So let me go into how the effects of this next 2 months are going to be for every zodiac sign. So let us start with Leo. So now Leo, the key for you is relationships, understanding what they are and how to grow within that area, and also the spiritual connections that you are building, perhaps areas that you want to travel. This is going to be the major keys to reevaluate for the next few months, while Saturn and Jupiter are going through their retrograde motion. For Virgos now, work and dealing with health, anything related to that, and any changes that you need to make spiritually within your mind, psyche, things that you're experiencing, the changes that you're experiencing, what are you pushing forward to make those changes to really change where you want to work or how you're going to work through things. Now for Libra, for you, it's more about relationships which can provide spiritual growth, relationships with spiritual gurus or teachers, relationships which can also activate deeper states of awareness and learning spiritually and growing through those connections, which are going to be really, really important for you. And also, I would also say working on the heart chakra is very important for Libra, making sure that you understand what love is. You're going to be directed in different directions, especially during the retrograde. Now, for Scorpio, things related to home, issues with emotions that you're experiencing within yourself or even with family members, areas where you're trying to evolve. So you may want to perhaps change the location that you're in or change certain things about your home or about where you're surrounding yourself. For Sagittarius, it's a mental faculty that you're working towards. A very strong mental element, perhaps things that may be affecting you when you're traveling, or the direction that you're trying to go, or perhaps it could be that there is a challenging thing which is mentally getting to you, or you may be over studying and trying to really kind of understand what is taking place from that spiritual point of view. For the sign of Capricorn, this is really to do with resources, money, trying to reevaluate your values, trying to identify where you're spending or who you're communicating with and what your communications are bringing to you, what kind of value they are activating for you. For Aquarius, you're more driven to work on yourself during this period of retrograde, and trying to understand perhaps your fear that you have about yourself. You know, there may be a fear to shine or a fear to express yourself. So that's been really activated. So that's really kind of highlighting this point of view of being more clearer about where you need to show the aspect of you of being able to shine. So this highlights also health stuff, so mental health as well. Now, when it comes to Pisces, you're dealing with the world. So it could be that you may need to connect more with charity, traveling in the world, being overwhelmed. You know, something can really overwhelm you at this present moment. And it's important for you to kind of see where and how it's affecting your psyche. So taking really clear observation of how your psyche is being challenged during this period is so important. So for Aries now, the element here is friends, the kind of friends that are around you. Are they friends that will help you, or are they taking advantage of you? So the restrictions on friends, and you know, perhaps it could be the difficulty in your friendships that you want to shift. Okay, so when we look at Taurus, you are reevaluating what you're trying to do work-wise, the kind of work that you're trying to accomplish. There may be a bit of resistance, so you may be feeling blocked in the area of the kind of work that you're actually trying to restructure, or goals that you're trying to accomplish. It's really, really kind of challenging you, but you'll be able to move through that situation as you move forward. Now, with Geminis, there is this element of traveling, you know, like, or perhaps education or studying. You're studying something, but you're finding it a little bit confining. So you're trying to think of the levels and the gradual steps that you're trying to achieve to bring them into clarity, trying to find new skills or perceptions, or even grow spiritually in those areas where you can really achieve a fundamental key to grow higher from where you are. So for Cancer, the difficulty with change could be like a feeling of loss that you may have gone through, or some kind of person that you may have lost, or you're feeling stuck. So you're trying to change how you are seeing things, and emotionally how you're going to push through things that are hard for you to change. So this is being activated for Cancer. Okay, so these were the 12 signs, and the key here is understanding the challenge that each sign is being activated with, and understanding these challenges can help to solve some of the issues that are taking place throughout this retrograde cycle of Saturn and Jupiter. It's going to be really important because it's going to bring greater awareness into where you need to see yourself grow in the future, because Saturn will be in these placements for the next year and a half. And we also have the element of Jupiter, which is also there, which is also challenging our views, but more spiritually, it's bringing wisdom into our perception and angle to where we choose to go in our life. So this was my breakdown on this month's astrological transits in relationship to what's happening. And one thing I will say actually is that with the placement of where Saturn is in the sky, it can also affect the element of how we may see reality in the next year and a half to 2 years. So this is one of the keys that one should also observe to understand and identify how things will turn out. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope this made sense. And yes, peace.